Let me start with a question that I want you to actually sit with, not scroll past, not nod through. Sit with it. When you finally got that promotion, that seat, that title, that level of access you'd been working 10, 15, 20 years to earn, did the door close behind you, or did you wedge it open for the next Black woman coming up? Be honest, not with me, with yourself. Because here's the uncomfortable truth I've watched play out in conference rooms across manufacturing, automotive, healthcare, quick service, professional services, and the nonprofit sector for over 2 decades. The biggest threat to Black women's collective advancement is not always the people at the top blocking us. Sometimes, and we don't talk about this enough, it's the woman who looks like us, who finally made it and decided the ladder she climbed was the last one being built. Today, we are going to dismantle that with strategy, with grace, and with a framework you can start using on Monday morning. Welcome back to Rise and Thrive. I'm Shay Blackmon, and if this is your first time joining me, pull up a chair, grab your notebook, and stay a while. This is the YouTube series specifically for professional Black women who are tired of being told to lean in, to network harder, to just be excellent. We go deeper than that. We go strategic. Today is Wednesday, May 6th, 2026, and we are sitting with Chapter 9 of my book, Rise and Thrive, A Black Woman's Blueprint for Leadership Excellence. The chapter is called Lifting While Climbing, and the opening quote, the one that anchors everything we're going to unpack today, is from Toni Morrison. The function of freedom is to free someone else. Toni Morrison. Read that one more time. The function of freedom is to free someone else. Toni Morrison was not making a suggestion. She was defining what freedom is for. She was telling us that liberation that ends with you is not actually liberation. It's just a personal escape route. And for Black women navigating corporate America in May of 2026, that distinction has never mattered more. Why this episode? Why right now? Because we are sitting in a moment where the corporate landscape is shifting fast. Companies are quietly walking back commitments they made publicly 5 years ago. DEI roles are being eliminated, restructured, or rebranded into oblivion. Promotion cycles are tightening. The pipeline of Black women coming up behind us is real, and it is fragile. And the question is no longer whether you have a seat at the table. The question is what you are doing with it and who you are pulling up to it with you. In the next 27 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 3 frameworks straight from Chapter 9, Doors, Change, and Legacy. I'm going to share a piece of Black women's history that most corporate leadership books will never teach you. I'm going to give you a practical exercise you can do this week, and I'm going to be very clear with you about why this is not soft, feel-good leadership. This is strategic transformation. Let's get into it. Before we touch a single framework, I need you to know where this principle comes from, because lifting while climbing is not a hashtag, and it is not a corporate slogan I made up. It is a 130-year-old strategy. In 1896, in Washington, D.C., a group of Black women came together and founded the National Association of Colored Women. Their motto, the one they put on their banners, their letterhead, their everything, was lifting as we climb. The president of that organization was Mary Church Terrell, daughter of formerly enslaved parents, one of the first Black women to earn a college degree in this country. A woman who, while she was personally ascending into educational, social, and political prominence, refused to do it alone. And she was not the only one. Ida B. Wells was investigating lynchings and writing them into the public record while simultaneously building organizations that funded other Black women's education. Nannie Helen Burroughs was running a school in D.C. specifically designed to prepare Black girls for economic independence at a time when Black girls were not supposed to have any. Mary McLeod Bethune was building a college in Florida from $5 and a dream while advising United States presidents. These women understood something we have forgotten in the Instagram era of personal branding. They understood that individual excellence in a system that was designed to crush them was not enough. The system itself had to be reshaped, and the only way to do that was collectively. They climbed, yes, but they always climbed with somebody. So when I tell you Chapter 9 of Rise and Thrive is rooted in a tradition older than the corporations we work for, I mean it literally. You are not inventing this. You are inheriting it. And the question is whether you will pass it on or let it die in your generation. Now let's get tactical. In Chapter 9, I introduce a framework called DOORS. And the reason I named it DOORS is intentional. Because the question is not whether you have arrived. The question is, what are you doing with the door behind you? Are you closing it? Are you propping it open with a polite paperweight? Or are you actually pulling other Black women through? DOORS stands for Develop, Open, Offer, Remove, Share. Let me walk you through each one with the realness it deserves. D. Develop pipeline programs. This is about structured pathways, not vibes. If you are in a position to influence hiring, recruiting, or early career programs in your organization, you have power here. That looks like advocating for internship partnerships with HBCUs, designing rotational assignments specifically aimed at high potential Black women, creating shadowing programs where junior Black women get real exposure to senior leaders, not the watered down version, the real one. And here's where I want to push you. There's a difference between mentioning the idea in a meeting and actually building the program. Most well-intentioned leaders do the first and call it advocacy. The DOORS framework requires the second. O. Open networks. Your network is currency, and most Black women in senior positions have spent their entire careers being told to protect that currency, hoard it, guard it, don't dilute it. I am telling you to do the opposite, strategically. Open networks looks like when you get the invitation to that exclusive industry roundtable, you ask if you can bring a guest, and you bring a junior Black woman who would never have been invited otherwise. When you get a call for board service, you decline the second one and recommend a Black woman who's been ready for 3 years but has never been asked. When you're putting together a panel for that conference you're keynoting, you make sure the Black women on it are not the same 5 names that always get the call. Open networks is uncomfortable because it feels like you are giving away access. You are not. You are multiplying it. O. Offer sponsorship. Now this one. This is the one that separates real lifting from the performance of lifting. There is a profound difference between mentorship and sponsorship, and I need every leader watching to understand this. Mentorship is when you sit with someone and give her advice. Coffee, conversation, encouragement. That's mentorship. Important, but safe. It costs you nothing. Sponsorship is when she is not in the room and you say her name. When the promotion list is being finalized, you advocate for her by name. When the stretch assignment is being assigned, you put her name forward. When somebody in the meeting questions whether she's ready, you publicly defend her readiness with evidence. Sponsorship costs you something. It puts your reputation, your political capital, your social standing on the line for someone else. And let me say this plainly. We see organizations all the time where senior leaders have a stable of mentees they meet with monthly. Beautiful relationships, Instagram-worthy coffee dates, but none of those mentees have actually been promoted, sponsored, or advanced because of that leader's intervention. That is mentorship without sponsorship, and it is not lifting. It's adjacency. R. Remove barriers. Now we get into systems work. Removing barriers means using your position to identify and dismantle the policies, practices, and unwritten rules that block Black women specifically. The hiring rubric that consistently scores Black women candidates lower despite equal qualifications. The promotion criteria that rewards a kind of self-promotion that we get penalized for using. The mentorship matching system that pairs everyone except us with senior leaders. You don't have to fix all of it, but you do have to identify one barrier per quarter that you have the authority to influence and apply pressure to it consistently. S. Share resources. Last one. Share resources means redistributing access to the things that accelerate careers. Professional development budgets, executive coaches, conference invitations, training programs, certifications, the email introduction that takes you 30 seconds and changes someone's trajectory. If you have access to a leadership development program in your company that historically has not included Black women, your job is to nominate one every cycle until the pattern breaks. That is DOORS. Develop, open, offer, remove, share. 5 categories. You can audit yourself against this framework right now. And if you're being honest, most of us, myself included, have done 2 well and the other 3 barely at all. So pick one. Pick the one you have been avoiding and start there. Here's the tension that every Black woman in corporate leadership lives in. We have to succeed inside systems that were not built for us, while simultaneously working to change those systems so the next generation does not have to fight the same battles we did. That is exhausting. And it is also non-negotiable. Because if we just play the game well and never reshape the rules, we have done nothing for anybody coming behind us. We've just been very good employees of an unequal system. So in Chapter 9, I introduced the change framework, and I'm going to walk through it quickly because I want you to feel how it builds on DOORS. C. Critique constructively. Identify the issues, but frame them as organizational opportunities. Use data. Propose solutions alongside your critiques. You are not a complainer. You are a strategist. H. Harness influence. Use your committee roles, your budget authority, your hiring decisions, your visibility. Influence is not always a title. Sometimes it is the agenda you set, the question you ask, the name you mention. A. Align with power. Connect change to organizational interests. Link diversity to innovation outcomes. Show retention data. Build the business case for equity in language the executives respect, even if the language itself frustrates you. Strategy over satisfaction. N. Navigate politics. Map the informal power structures in your organization. Identify who actually makes decisions, not who is supposed to make them. Find your change champions. Time your initiatives carefully. There is a season for pushing and a season for positioning. G. Generate momentum. Celebrate small wins out loud. Document your progress. Share success stories internally. Change is not just the policy, it's the narrative around the policy. E. Embed changes. Institutionalize the wins. Update the policy language. Modify the performance metrics. Revise the job descriptions. Because if the change lives only in your head and your relationships, the moment you leave, it leaves with you. That is not transformation. That is hosting. Audre Lorde gave us a line that is essential to this work. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. We have to be creative about what tools we use, and we have to know when working inside the system is enough and when we need to build something different. Both have a place. The change framework helps you decide which strategy fits which situation. Here's what I want you to think about. In your current role, what is one system, one policy, one practice that disproportionately harms or excludes Black women that you are positioned to influence? Just one. Not the whole company, not the whole industry, one thing within your reach. Write it down. Now we get to the heart of it, because at some point we have to stop measuring our careers by titles and start measuring them by the lives we changed. In Chapter 9, the legacy framework is built on 6 pillars: Lead, educate, guide, advocate, create, yield. Let me give you the version of each one that I want you to actually internalize. L. Lead by example. Be the leadership you wished you'd had. Demonstrate authentic leadership when it would be easier to perform inauthentic leadership. Maintain integrity under pressure, not just because it's right, but because the women coming behind you are watching to see if it's possible. E. Educate systematically. Share the unwritten rules. Document the political playbook. Teach what nobody taught you. The amount of corporate knowledge that lives only in white networks because it was never written down, that is a barrier you can break by simply telling the truth about how promotions actually work, about how raises are actually negotiated, about how decisions actually get made. Most of us figured it out the hard way. Your job is to make it easier for the next one. G. Guide development. Provide structured support. Real feedback, not the polite kind that protects feelings while sabotaging careers, but the honest kind that respects the person enough to tell her the truth. Create development plans. Connect her to the resources and people she needs. A. Advocate actively. Use your voice when she is not in the room. Speak up in meetings when something biased happens, even when it is awkward, especially when it is awkward. Promote her achievements in spaces where she is not present. Defend against unfair criticism. Advocacy is loud and it is consistent, and it does not require her to ask. C. Create community. Build the affinity groups. Host the dinners. Create the peer mentorship circles. The isolation that Black women experience in corporate spaces is one of the leading reasons we leave, and you have the power to interrupt that isolation by building the community you wish had existed for you. Why? Yield platform. This is the hardest one for many leaders, and I'll be honest with you, it was hard for me. Yield platform means sharing the spotlight when your instinct is to hold it. Inviting other Black women to present in spaces where you are the only one being invited. Co-authoring instead of solo authoring. Recommending other speakers when the keynote slot becomes available again. Amplifying voices that are not yet established. Yielding platform is hard because we built our careers in environments of scarcity. We were taught, explicitly and implicitly, that there's only room for one of us at a time, that if she rises, you fall. That is a lie. That is the lie the system needed us to believe so we wouldn't band together. The truth is that when one of us rises authentically and brings others with her, all of us get more room, not less. Maya Angelou said, "When you learn, teach. When you get, give. Lead, educate, guide, advocate, create, yield." 6 verbs, all of them active, none of them passive. Let me draw the through line for you, because some of you are watching me on Wednesdays for the Black Women's Leadership content and on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the broader Unlock, Empower, Transform podcast. And I want you to see how these two streams talk to each other. My high-value leadership methodology rests on 5 pillars: purpose-driven vision, stewardship of culture, emotional intelligence, balanced responsibility, and authentic connection. When we talk about lifting while climbing, we are operating in 3 of those pillars at once. Stewardship of culture, because the culture you create around you when you ascend determines whether the next person who looks like you can survive in that environment. Balanced responsibility, because if you are climbing alone, you are not balanced. You are on your own personal escalator while everybody else is on the stairs. And authentic connection, because the relationships you build with the women coming up behind you cannot be transactional. They cannot be branding exercises. They have to be real. This is what makes high-value leadership different from a lot of mainstream leadership content. Mainstream leadership says you can be a great leader as long as you hit your numbers. High-value leadership says no. Leadership is measured by the culture you create and the people you elevate. The numbers are downstream of the culture. Now, let me bring this into the moment we are actually living in, May 2026. The corporate landscape has shifted dramatically over the last 24 months. We have watched companies that made loud public commitments in 2020 and 2021 quietly walk those commitments back. We have watched DEI departments be eliminated, restructured, renamed into something more palatable, or simply absorbed into HR with no real authority. We have watched mentorship programs specifically designed for Black women get cut as quote unquote budget priorities. Here is what that means for you. The institutional support that was supposed to lift Black women in corporate America is being withdrawn. So the lifting is going to have to come from us, directly, person to person, leader to emerging leader. Without the program, without the budget line, without the corporate stamp of approval. That sounds heavy, and it is. But it is also exactly how Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, Nannie Helen Burroughs, and Mary McLeod Bethune did it. They didn't have corporate DEI departments either. They had each other. They had vision. They had strategy. And they had the absolute refusal to let the women coming behind them inherit the same struggle. So if you've been waiting for your company to start a program, stop waiting. You can start a peer mentorship circle in your function. You can start sponsoring one Black woman this quarter. You can start sharing the unwritten rules in a private LinkedIn group. The question is not whether the institutional support is coming back. The question is what you are going to do in the absence of it. Before we close, I want to give you something you can actually do this week. I call it the 3-name audit, and it comes directly out of the Legacy Blueprint exercise in Chapter 9 of the book. Step 1, get a piece of paper or open a fresh note on your phone. I want you to write down 3 names, 3 Black women in your professional orbit who are at a stage earlier than yours. Could be junior to you in your company, could be in your industry, could be in your sorority chapter, could be a former intern. 3 names. Step 2. Next to each name, I want you to write one specific thing, one, that you could do for her in the next 30 days that would meaningfully advance her career. Not a coffee chat, something with weight. An introduction to a specific person. An invitation to a meeting where she'd get exposure. A nomination for a program. A public endorsement on LinkedIn. A recommendation for a stretch assignment. Something that costs you time, social capital, or political capital, something real. Step 3, put a date next to each one, a specific date by which you will take that action. Step 4, and this is the one that converts intention into legacy. Actually do it. By the date you wrote down, no revising, no rescheduling, no, let me wait until I have more bandwidth. The whole point of this episode is that the bandwidth excuse is what kills the lifting work, always. 3 names, 3 specific actions, 3 dates, done in 30 days. That is how legacy gets built. Not in grand gestures, in repeatable, accountable, deliberate actions taken consistently over years. And if you do this exercise and find yourself struggling to think of 3 names, that itself is data. It tells you that your network of Black women you are actively investing in needs to grow, which is also a beautiful place to start. Let's bring it home. Toni Morrison told us that the function of freedom is to free someone else. And what she was telling us, what Mary Church Terrell knew in 1896, is that personal liberation that ends with the individual is not actually liberation. It's just an exit door used selfishly. For Black women in corporate spaces in 2026, this is not optional theory. This is the strategy. This is how we change the demographics of leadership in this country, not by waiting for institutions to do it for us, but by every single one of us who has access to a door committing to bring at least 3 more women through it, behind us, with us, sometimes ahead of us. The frameworks I gave you today, doors, change, and legacy, are not exhaustive. They are starting points. They are the structure. The lifting itself, the climbing itself, that is yours to do. Lift intentionally, climb strategically, transform permanently. Here is my question for you, and I genuinely want you to answer it in the comments because your question might become the next Ask Shay Deep Dive. The question is this: who is the one Black woman in your professional life right now whose career you have the power to change with one specific action? And what is stopping you from taking it? Drop it below. Be honest. This community holds each other accountable, and your truth might be exactly what someone else needs to read tonight. If you haven't grabbed your free Shield Resilient Strategy Guide yet, the link is in the description. It pairs perfectly with this episode because resilience is what allows you to keep doing the lifting work over years, not just weeks. If you want the full Chapter 9 deep dive, including the complete legacy blueprint exercise with all 8 parts that I only had time to gesture at today, Rise and Thrive, A Black Woman's Blueprint for Leadership Excellence is the book. Link in the description. And the Rise and Thrive Academy waitlist is open. If you are ready for the next level of community, structured curriculum, and direct access to me, that's where you want to be. Link below. I'm Shay Blackmon, and you've been watching Rise and Thrive. Remember, Thursdays I am live with Unlock, Empower, Transform for all leaders. But Wednesdays are ours. Until next week, keep rising, keep thriving, and don't you dare climb alone.